Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to take a look at another older Jurassic Park figure. This is the Jurassic Park 3 React Attack Brachiosaurus by Hasbro. I know a lot of people have a very strong, sour feeling toward Hasbro, but in my opinion, we cannot dare deny how good of a job they did on the Jurassic Park 3 toy line. Some of the figures that were released were not really that great, like the Raptors are okay, they're nothing special, but then they have other figures that honestly, as far as I'm concerned, were really well done, like the Pterosaurs and actually this Brachiosaurus. I am a big fan of this Brachiosaurus, and I've wanted it for a very long time. I actually only got a hold of this a few months ago, but I was really psyched to have it, and in person, it is really quite the beautiful Brachiosaurus figure. So we're going to go ahead and get a closer look at this figure right now. So taking a look at the head sculpt, you can see that the head sculpt does sport some really nice sculpt and detail within the head as far as like the skin texture and stuff goes. It does look really quite nice actually. Maybe not the best JP head sculpt as far as a Brachiosaurus goes, just because he has his mouth open, he's kind of showing his teeth, looks a little crazy. And the eye placement isn't really that great, but I think it looks okay. Looks good enough, I would imagine. But you can see that the teeth are actually sculpted out quite nicely. The tongue also is sculpted out quite nicely in there and painted quite nicely. So even though it has kind of a little bit of a strange appearance to the head sculpt, at the same time it does look really cool, and it almost just gives you kind of like the feeling that it's reaching out to take a bite of a branch or something and maybe get a bite to eat. So at the same time, the head sculpt looks a little weird. It still looks pretty good. Overall, you've got the nostrils sculpted out up here on the top of the head. Pretty nice detail up there as well. Primarily, the head is nothing but a nice light blue. And then as you get to the top of the head, you can see a darker blue starts to pick up. And that blue runs down the course of the neck and kind of litters down onto the neck in certain areas. And you can see how that runs down throughout the entire neck. And you can also see how nice the detail is. Lots of creasing and lots of cracks and crevices throughout the sculpt of the neck skin texture, and I think it looks really good. One thing that I think is severely underrated is just how good the fine detailing of a lot of these JP3 sculpts are. The neck is nice and long, and then as we get down here into the body, you can see how good the skin texture looks and continues to look, and then it picks up here into a little bit of a larger skin texture. You can see the shoulder blade there protruding from the skin. As we move down into the front leg, you can see how nice the paintwork is. I think the paintwork looks really good overall. Lots of various colors included, and that's one thing that I think the JP3 line really excelled in, is the paint applications of their figures. There was absolutely no laziness when it came to the paint apps on the JP3 figures, or even the figures that Hasbro created right after the Jurassic Park 3 line. They continued on with the same trend of having extremely nice paint applications on their figures, and you can see we go back to like this light blue here, and then we also have this white that runs down the leg, and I think the colors they've chosen here, although not exactly accurate to a Jurassic Park Brachiosaurus, look really good on this figure. You've got some nicely painted nails there, beautifully sculpted foot, really nice detailing the whole way up, lots of really nice creasing right here in the joint of the elbow. You also have the elbow back here as well. Moving back up into the body, you can see some nice skin detail here, some nice kind of skin folding and everything going on. You've got a little bit of dino damage right here in the stomach, and there is a button here to push to make a noise. Unfortunately, mine doesn't work, which is definitely a bummer because I would have liked to have shown off the noise here for the review, but I did put batteries in it. I did give it a shot. Unfortunately, it doesn't work, so I guess we'll just have to skip over that part. But if you happen to have one of these figures at home already, then you'll probably know what it sounds like. Nice skin detail up here on the back of the Brachiosaurus. You can see the spinal column looks really good as it runs down. You can kind of make out the hip bone here, but at the same time, that's sort of where this connects, so it sort of implies that it's like a hip bone, but it may not actually be. Regardless, once we get down here into this rear leg, look at how incredible the sculpt is of that. You've of course got the really cool JP3 brand right there. You've got that stamped on there, and it looks super cool. I love that, and I'm sad that the Mattel line doesn't do that anymore. But as you move down, the skin texture of this rear leg just looks incredible. Nice muscle definition, really nicely displayed there. Beautiful kneecap there in the front. You've got a really nice foot sculpt here for the rear foot. Again, nicely painted nails, giving a nice gloss for the extra bit of realism. And then as we move back into the tail, you can see that the skin texture continues to look really quite nice. It comes out to a very, very strong curve. It kind of feels like the tail is bendable, but it doesn't really bend, and it just goes right back into place. The neck, however, definitely is flexible, and it has a real feel sort of feeling to it. It's a rubber, but it doesn't really stay in place anymore. It kind of falls right back to where it was initially as well. And you can see that we have this nice light blue, again the dark blue that stripes down, and then the white here on the underside for the color scheme. You'll also notice that this leg stays up in the air, and that's because this leg is what controls the action feature back there with the tail, so that leg is always up for some reason like that. Now, one unfortunate downside to this figure is that you can see we have some holes on this side of the neck, and that is definitely a bit of a downside, something that Hasbro is known for. You can also see the area here for the sound to come out of. For our Brachiosaurus, I really would have preferred they put that down here on the underside somewhere like Mattel does, but they did not. But you can see, again, the shoulder blade nicely sculpted out there. The skin texture looks incredible on this side as well. You can even make out the rib cage right there quite nicely. Moving down into the front leg is nice and stiff right here, really flexing and displaying the musculature of the Brachiosaurus's front leg, but also the fact that it's putting all of its weight currently on this leg because this leg is up in the air, and it's really showing just how defined everything is because of that. And you can also see how beautiful that skin texture is. Look at that skin texture as we move down into the foot. Really nice white foot with beautiful black nails at that very nice gloss coat. Really nice elbow, once again sculpted out back here. Really beautiful skin folding and everything right here in the stomach region. You can see kind of the skin playing off of this leg here, pulling the skin back a little bit. The skin texture of the animal has that very large feel, that very large animal feel. And you can also see that you've got this nice like darker blue, but it even gets to a darker coloration up here in the middle of the spine. So as far as paintwork goes, there's just a ton of different variations of color included in this figure. And then we get down here to the rear leg. Once again, really beautifully defined musculature in both the calf and thigh. We have the really nice kneecap, beautiful foot sculpt with those really nicely painted nails. And then we come back up here into the tail, and again the tail has that very strong, kind of an unrealistic curve to it, but at the same time it's really nicely sculpted. Beautiful detailing here on the underside. I don't know who David is, but I assume that's probably the prior owner to this, because I did of course buy this pre-owned. You can see even the undersides of the feet of the Brachiosaurus are really, really nicely sculpted. So this figure is absolutely awesome. There are a few downsides like the holes and stuff here on the other side, and just in general the fact that this leg stays up in the air like that, but overall I am a huge fan of this Brachiosaurus. As far as articulation goes, of course I did state that we have the articulation of the neck. It has kind of like that wire type of an effect where you can turn it, but it doesn't stay wherever you turn it to, it just kind of comes right back. We also have articulation here in the legs. All four legs articulate quite nicely, and then articulation in the tail. And the tail is due to the action feature, which you push the leg down and it causes the tail to move, which the only thing that I don't like about this is the fact that you see the tail's on a curve, and that's kind of the action feature of the Brachiosaurus, to use its tail as a weapon. I feel like the tail should have been straightened out, because if the dinosaur is going to be hitting other dinosaurs with it, it's going to want a nice straight tail to hit them with, but at the same time maybe it's supposed to appear as though the Brachiosaurus is coiling up its tail to slam into the dinosaur. I'm not entirely sure what the idea there was, but that's probably the best bet that I can get out of it. As far as the size goes, for a height on our Brachiosaurus, you're looking at about 7¼ inches, or about 18½ centimeters for a height, and then for a length about 9¼ inches, maybe a little more, or about 23½ centimeters, somewhere in that range. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Back Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Jurassic World toy line, and you can definitely see that this Brachiosaurus is not even remotely close to being sized correctly with the Jurassic World figures or the Papo Rex, but also it's not remotely close as far as the size of the Jurassic World Mattel Brachiosaurus, which is just ridiculously huge. You can see that this figure is really small, so it's a much more reasonably sized figure. It's something that probably would appeal a lot more to some collectors that may not have that much room left in their collection, but even still being not really that large, it's got some pretty good size to it, so it's a decently sized Brachiosaurus figure, just nothing over the top huge. So this Hasbro Jurassic Park 3 Brachiosaurus, the React Attack Brachiosaurus, is definitely a very cool figure. I think the sculpt on it is really, really nice. The detailing, the very fine detailing, like the skin texture and everything, honestly is off the charts. The JP3 figures, as far as like the skin texture and the musculature and the skin folding and all of that stuff, they were really, really good, if you ask me. And this Brachiosaurus is a prime example of that. You can see that the overall detailing everywhere that we look is really beautifully done. The paintwork also is just top notch. And this Brachiosaurus, again, it really does sport quite a few different colors. You've got like a very dark, almost like a black or a gray that runs along the spinal column up onto the neck. You also have a darker blue that's underneath that, along with a lighter blue underneath that, and then you've got a nice white for the underside of the dinosaur, and even throughout the white, in certain areas you have another lighter blue kind of lining and streaking through certain areas. So there's just a ton of different paint variations on this figure, and I think the colors they chose, although light colors usually don't look that good for me as far as a sauropod goes, I think it does look really, really good on this figure. Unfortunately, like I said, we don't have the option to hear the noise because for some reason mine no longer works, even though it's perfectly clean inside the battery compartment and everything, but I don't know, it just doesn't want to work today. So unfortunately we don't get to hear the noise, but we did get a look at the action feature and the articulation, and those are also pretty nice. Nothing over the top great, but nothing bad either. So if you would like to pick this up, your best bet is probably eBay, because again, Jurassic Park 3 has been over for a very long time. This figure is long out of production, no longer being made, so you're really only going to be able to buy it from resellers and stuff, and collectors that are maybe selling off their collection on eBay. So I will try my best to find a link on eBay for you to pick one up, but if not, you're probably going to have to search one out, and maybe you'll get lucky, stumble upon one somewhere in like a collectibles store or something. But either way, definitely pick one up if you do see it, because it is a really cool figure. And also make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.